Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Amy Miller. I am president of the PhRMA Foundation, and we're here today to talk about funding opportunities for early career researchers at the PhRMA Foundation. The agenda for today is as follows. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the foundation, talk about our funding opportunities because they have changed from last cycle. We will review the application process, show you some free resources, and we will be answering questions via the Q&A. So first, about the foundation. We are a team of three. I'm the president, Emily Ortman is the head of communications, and Joanne Westfall is the head of operations. She's the person who does most of the communicating with you. Here is our mission and value statements. For those of you who don't know, the foundation is a nonprofit that provides grants and fellowships to early career researchers who are looking at drug delivery, drug discovery, and translational medicine primarily. We are about 60 years old, and we are a separate organization from PhRMA, which is a trade association. We have our own board of directors, and were founded about 60 years ago. We strive for integrity in our applicants, and so please pay close attention to this webinar. And when you're applying, please pay close attention to the guidelines that we have for you online and stick to the eligibility criteria. We like collaborative projects, and so if you need a bit of expertise from outside your own, great. Find a collaborator and make sure that there is a collaborator letter ready to go when you fill out your full application. Next. Since our founding in 1965, we funded over 2,800 awardees at over 275 institutions, and we've given away more than $110 million, and that's in today's dollars, not accounting for inflation. We have helped catalyze scientific careers and grow new fields of research over the course of our history. And in fact, we are 60 years old, so we surveyed our awardees and have an impact report, which I encourage you to take a look at. But as you can see, our awardees are a very special class, and they are highly competitive research awards. Many of them still work with industry, either within industry or as an external partner to industry. Even though we had retirees in our survey, 94% are still involved in research, which is incredible. And aside from NIH funding, almost 40% received industry funding, which I think you've come to understand is probably more important for your careers moving forward. Next. So we have the following funding opportunities. Today, we're going to talk about drug discovery, drug delivery, and translational medicine. We just met earlier this week or last week to give away our value assessment and health outcomes awards. Yes, that was Monday. And if you applied, you'll hear very soon if you won our awards or not. Every single one of these project definitions and eligibility criteria have changed from last session. So it is absolutely okay if you reapply. In fact, we encourage you to reapply after looking at the feedback we sent. But be sure to look at our eligibility criteria and our program descriptions before reapplying because many things have changed. And the portal for the letters of interest are open right now for drug discovery and drug delivery. Translational medicine is delayed a little bit, and it will open in April. And then for value assessment and health outcomes research, that opens in September. For drug discovery, we are looking for these types of programs, and we've tightened up our non-responsiveness language. So in the past, we have occasionally funded basic biology, and we're no longer looking at that. There has to be a disease or therapeutic context to proposals. We don't fund tool-only development or platform AI without a biological mechanism. So keep that in mind. All proposals must clearly state a therapeutically relevant hypothesis. These can't be studies just because they're biologically interesting. They have to have a relevance. They must define a disease context, for example, look at target pathway discovery, therapeutic rationale, hit lead identification, validation, and modeling. And with hit lead, it's not enough to say, oh, we're looking for the top 5% hits. We need to see a hypothesis-driven hit to lead project. And we are accepting AI/ML projects with and without biological validation. They must have a therapeutic intent, though. And for those of you who are looking to do an AI project, um, you have to be excellent and you have to have experience with drug development or drug discovery. So if you're a computational scientist and are wading into these waters because you'll think they're interesting, I just want you to know these are highly competitive grants, and the AI experts on our committees are from industry and they're looking for that industrial interest, spark, and sophistication. Furthermore, the computational approaches must present a clear and feasible plan for translational validation to a human system. Uh, they must be data-driven. You have to clearly document everything, including referenced methodology. The data curation process has to be clearly articulated, and there must be details to your validation process. You can't assume the reader of the LOI or the reader of the full application knows these things. We can't assume that you know how to use computational approaches correctly. And again, to be non-responsive, you have to think of the clinical context of your research, even if it's in the distance. We're not looking to fund a one-off scientist here. We're looking to fund a future leader in the field and somebody who looks at this project and sees where it goes over the course of a career. Next. For delivery, we've tightened up this definition as well. The system must be defined and it must have a therapeutic payload. The specified tissue target needs to be explained and a delivery rationale. Last cycle, our committee was a little disappointed where there was no explanation on how a target was going to be delivered. And so we really need that therapeutic payload defined, the target tissue, and a rationale for dosing, PK and PD. That's very important, and we can't assume that an applicant knows it. It needs to be in there. Just to articulate the non-responsive language, it has changed since last cycle. We're not interested in platform-only materials development, projects with no payload that's clearly defined, no feasibility plan for inhuman. Characterization only studies are not acceptable. Everything needs to be hypothesis driven, therapeutically driven. And we need delivery systems to have a translational endpoint. So again, we're looking for those future leaders. We're looking for those projects that aren't one-off. That's part of a broader vision of how you intend to be a delivery scientist. Our committee really likes multiple modalities and prioritizes those types of projects. And again, proposals framed as platform development without payload, disease context, or feasibility pathways will not be considered. On to translational medicine. So again, this opens a little later, but if you're thinking about applying to the translational medicine category, it's changed quite a lot since last cycle. So you may find that your research no longer fits if you are trying to reapply. And that's why we're having this conversation now. In case yours fits a little bit more in delivery or discovery, you need to get ready to apply. And if yours is true translational medicine, you do have a little extra time, good for you. But we've really tightened the definition and expanded it in some ways. So for example, we're very interested in target validation, biomarker validation, and human data, human-derived systems. If you're trying to turn a Maureen model into a human model, this is probably where you're going to want to go. We're interested in disease stratification and exposure response modeling. Endpoints are very important to this committee. They can be novel, intermediate, surrogate, digital, FDA, relevant. That's all good stuff. And then bridging those preclinical findings into human relevance. This is where they would go. No rodent-only preclinical mechanistic studies belong here anymore. There has to be human validation. And we prefer, if you're working in a clinical setting, we prefer that you're working with a clinician. We prefer that you collect your own data. Of course, we know we fund brain bank data all the time. So if you're using a brain bank or if you're using a data sample that is highly specialized, you just have to explain that. We still look at them. But again, clearly state your therapeutically relevant hypothesis. And everything you do should address a clinical need in this category. We fund pre-docs, postdocs, and early career faculty, and you can see the time and the stipend amount for pre-docs and postdocs. There's no pro or con to applying for 12, 18, or 24 months. Our committee doesn't care. What they care about is that what you're proposing can be done within the time frame that you're proposing. So if you're doing a quick and dirty study that can be done in 12 months, fantastic. If it's high risk, high reward, you might fail, great, send it to us. If it's going to take you 3 years to do it, then maybe outline what you can do in 2 years and then talk about what you hope to do in the future. But be realistic about what you can achieve in the timeline you're asking for. And for postdocs, every year we get lots of questions where a postdoctoral position is dependent on our funding. Unfortunately, we can't accept an LOI or an application from a postdoc who isn't currently in a postdoctoral position. So you need to be in your postdoc. You have to have a university affiliation in the United States at the time you apply. And that's very important. And we get a lot of those questions, so I really want you to hear me. You have to have a postdoctoral position to apply. Now, for pre-docs, I'm going to turn it over to Joanne, who's going to give you more detail than you could ever want on eligibility requirements. Joanne.
Hey, everybody. Thank you very much for joining our call today. For a pre-doc eligible, for someone to receive a pre-doc or at least to submit an LOI, please make sure that you've already completed the first 2 years of your coursework. We don't want someone just beginning graduate school. You have to have those first 2 years completed, and you have to be in your thesis research by the time of funding. If you're applying in delivery or discovery, your funding will begin as early as January 1 or as late as August 1, 2027. If you're applying to our translational medicine program, your funding will begin as early as April 1, 2027 or as late as December 1, 2027. So please make sure that is your case because it will be checked before we do any type of awards. And we actually even check it before we start assessing the LOIs. So if you're not eligible, we're going to bounce you at the beginning. We also want you to have at least one publication or poster this year. This is a new requirement from previous years. You do not have to be the first author of that publication, but you do need to be one of the authors of that publication. If you expect to complete your PhD before December 31st, 2027, please do not apply. That you will not be considered. With reference to citizenship, yet again, to reiterate what Amy said, any nationality may apply for our funding. You just have to be based at an institution in the United States. On to the postdocs. As Amy said, in order to apply for our postdoc position, you must be in your postdoc position at the time of your LOI submission. You will have to submit with your .edu email address for that position you're in. We want you to have 2 first author publications. Again, this is a new requirement from previous years. If your doctoral degree was before January of 2024, please do not apply. And if you're somebody who is continuing your postdoc from your graduate school, just know that that's a less favorable applicant to us. We do prefer intellectual diversity. So ideal candidates are someone who's doing their postdoc work at another institution than where they did their graduate work. Emily, faculty starter grant, please. So all of our awards are really competitive, but our faculty starter grant is the most competitive out of all of ours. They're limited. They are meant to help start your career, so you should be an early researcher. If your faculty starter grant, if your faculty position began before January 1 of 2025, please do not apply. If your terminal degree was before January 1 of 2017, please do not apply. You do need to have 3 first author publications. And if you have a lot of miscellaneous funding and it's over $250,000 a year, please do not apply. Again, our faculty starter grant is meant to help start your career. It is not meant to just give you another $100,000. Next slide. Okay. First and foremost, any nationality may apply as long as you're in the United States. Pre-docs and postdocs may not hold another fellowship or funding mechanism while our fellowship is active. Pre- and postdoc fellowships are intended solely as stipend. Our faculty starter grant money is meant for your project. It's however you need to spend that money for your project to succeed. Our funding may never be used for indirect costs or fringe benefits. New this year, only one applicant per lab may apply in each funding category. This means if you have 3 people that want to apply to drug discovery, 2 pre-docs, 1 postdoc, or 1 pre-doc, 1 postdoc, and 1 faculty starter grant, only one of you may apply, not all 3 of you. You and your lab mates will need to decide who will be submitting the LOI this year. Only 1 LOI per lab, it will be checked. And if we receive more applicants per lab, you will automatically be disqualified. Overall, in any of our funding categories, we want to fund future leaders. So again, everything is very competitive. If you have poster sessions and presentations, show them off. Make sure they're in your bibliography or in your bio sketch that you need to attach to your application. Amy or Emily, did I miss anything? Okay, Amy's next.
All right. I was answering questions, so if you will give me a quick second to catch up to you. All right. I'm ready. Thank you. That was me typing live in case you were curious where all those answers came from. You asked some good questions, and those of you who sent in research ideas, they sound really interesting. All right. So next up is the timeline. So as you can see right now, the portal is open and the letters of intent are due on April 15th. Easy to remember, it's tax day. There are no extensions, and when we say they're due at noon, they're due at noon Eastern time. So mark your calendar for 5 p.m. the day before and try to get it in the night before. And so if you have a glitch, then you can solve it in the morning. I really wouldn't wait till noon on April 15th to apply. Forgive the phone ringing. Um, for the letter of intent phase, oh, sorry. Um, the funding timeline for transitional medicine is a little different. The application portal opens on April 15th, and you can see the rest of the dates moving forward. So for the letter of intent phase, you do need an NIH biosketch, and please include a link to your full bibliography. Many of us have common names, like Amy Miller is an extremely common name. So please don't make our reviewers look for you. Just have your NIH biosketch with a link to your complete publication record. And in your biosketch, please do put your scientific engagement at poster sessions, regional and national and international meetings. All of that is part of how your package is considered. We do need a project abstract and then your letter of intent. You are allowed to have images in those, but be sure to make them easy to read because when reviewers are looking at these LOIs and they can't see the image clearly, they're just going to not give you a yes. They're going to pass on your application. And unfortunately, that is a mistake we get a lot is we have these really hard to read images and you just don't move forward to the full application. And then the research impact questions. It's very important that you answer those, and they may change from year to year. So if you're reapplying, which we welcome you to do, and we like it when you do it, be sure to reread everything to make sure the research impact questions haven't changed. And if they have changed, respond accordingly. And don't delete a research impact question. We look administratively to make sure your package is complete. So you've got that NIH bio sketch, you've got that link to your full bibliography, you've got your project abstract, your letter of intent, and your research impact questions. And if you delete a research impact question or we can't read the images in your letter of intent, it does not move forward. So keep those things in mind. And the research impact questions are here. And when you go into the Proposal Central portal, you'll see them all there. And so, again, please don't delete a question. We've had it happen. If that happens, your project is incomplete. We've also had people resubmit theirs from last year without checking to make sure the impact questions haven't changed. So do pay close attention to that. When people are looking at the the LOIs, many of our reviewers start with the research impact questions and they'll triage if these don't match. Another thing that gets you triaged real quick is if your research impact questions don't match your LOI. We've had that before too, so don't get caught in that trap. Next. So full application. We hope you get invited to a full application. And if you're reapplying, please let us know because when we're at committee, people remember your application, your name, your university, your personal statement, your rough research project, and they're excited to see you come back and reapply. And you get good special attention. So read your feedback, make sure you're still eligible, make sure your project still fits within the program description, and let us know at full application if you're reapplying. With the NIH BioSketch, which should be identical, you can also, we encourage you to include an extended letter. And this is a chance to tell us about yourself. When we're evaluating people and projects, we are looking for future leaders, and leadership looks differently to different people. So we've had people who coached sports teams or were heavily involved in their faith community or were teaching people how to read in their spare time. So we're not just looking for scientific leadership, but of course we are. If you're head of the student chapter of your professional association, be sure to tell us that. Tell us how you got into science. Maybe you were trying to be an accountant and took a biology lab for some reason and fell in love. That's an important story, and you want to make yourself come alive. Um, I know that some people try to stick to their scientific trajectory in their extended letter, and I would encourage you not to do that because we can see your scientific story in your bio sketch. What we want to see here is your long view thinking of your career arc and also how you started walking this journey. For your research plan, I can't tell you enough how important those aims are. We have a whole video on an aims page, and it is a few years old, but it's still gold. So watch it. We need a rationale. When evaluating a full application, you're competing with the best worldwide. And so bring your thought to life. Tell us exactly why you're interested in it and what's the significance now. If the significance takes a few more iterations of research to get there, that's fine. We like to see that thinking though, so get it in there. We can't assume that you understand methodological concerns, statistical concerns, so put it all in there. If your aims are interdependent, make sure you have an alternative second aim in case aim one fails. Many times aim one will fail. And we like risky research. So it's important that you have some alternative paths because if you have interdependent aims and there's a possibility of aim one failure, which this is science, of course there is, um, you may not get the award because there's no alternative path. That is incredibly important and it comes at committee. So not only do you need an alternative idea, it has to be a good one too, just in case when you have those interdependent aims. If you don't have interdependent aims, it's less important. Same with statistical plan. Uh, you have to write a little bit about your intended statistical plan because our committee really wants to know what you're thinking. They want to see the hypothesis. They want to see your expectation and how you got there. They don't really like, oh, we're looking for the top 5% or the bottom 5%. Why? We have to understand your rationale there. Preliminary results are always welcome in a research plan, but it's also okay if you are applying for a pilot grant. I'm sorry, if you're doing this project as a pilot study, that's okay too. So both either always fine, but of course, these are scientific reviewers. They like some data, so give them some. And then we do like a timeline for milestones and make sure you do have that relevant bibliography in there. Another danger zone is some people forget a totally relevant uh, area of science that may not be their expertise, but is adjacent to the hypothetical question. So it's really important that you look at other literatures. If you ignore a complete body of literature, you won't get the award because it kind of says you're a little too narrowly focused, and scientific thinkers need to be widely read and to have a broad worldview of their science. Faculty are encouraged to do a detailed budget. Sometimes when reading a faculty application and we're trying to decide between who's getting funds and who isn't, and it looks like a tie, the committee will open up that budget and they'll look at what is being spent and they'll evaluate the project in lieu of that budget. So that's really an important document. And we haven't stressed the importance of that document in the past. We don't give you a budget template. Do as much detail as you feel comfortable. But I will say that sometimes that budget document ends up being the tiebreaker on who gets funding. Same with that extended letter. Sometimes that scientific story or that inspiration or that curiosity, that sometimes can be a tiebreaker as well. Other sources of funding, it's important for faculty to list that out. And then the letters of reference. Thesis advisor, if you need a collaborator, for example, if you're going to have a statistician, that's fine. If you have an AI collaborator, that's fine too. We just need those collaborator letters. And be sure your general references are familiar with your career trajectory. And impress upon them how important these letters are. We don't really like it when we see letters with track changes in it, so impress upon your referees that these are important, they're read. And I forgot to mention the training plan. The training plan can be written by your advisor, it can be written by you, but that is another place where we look when we're evaluating the entire package in the pre and post doc. We look closely at that training plan. If you're trying to pick up a new skill, that's absolutely acceptable, but we need to see in that training plan how you're going to gain that skill and from whom. And again, that can be from an external collaborator. It doesn't necessarily need to be your mentor. I know I've covered a lot in that, um, but we will move on to the next slide. Our scientific advisors are half industry and half academic. That is important for you to know because the industry experts are looking for relevance in their career timeline. Does this matter for industry? Does this matter for the future of the field? Does this matter for the future of human health? Can I use it? If this was true, if this finding was true, how useful would it be for me or research in a particular area? They both review the LOIs and the full applications, and they meet together to discuss it. When you win, our awards, it means that not only are you highly competitive, you're an excellent scientist and a future leader in the field, but you've been judged by two very distinct groups of people, people working in the industrial workforce and people working in the academic workforce. And so keep that in mind when you're putting your package together. Next. What do we like? We like high risk, high reward. And it is okay if you're going to fail. This is not the place to play it safe. We don't need to see safe studies. Um, get a good idea and send it to us. That's what we want to see. We also like research that doesn't have a natural home. Some of the best projects we funded and some of the best researchers we've supported gave us research because theirs didn't have a natural home. Uh, we really want to see your thinking beyond this one specific idea. And you can get that across to us in a variety of different ways, but think about that when you're putting your application together. And then for everything, think about translation potential to human. Even if you're doing preclinical work into discovery, still think about what that means to human health and find a way to demonstrate that for us. Next. And so we do an annual report every year, and they're all online. I would encourage you to go into some annual reports and read the translation, discovery, and delivery sections, especially if you're not sure where your research fits. Go ahead and read this annual report and figure out where your research fits, get inspiration, and get to know the kinds of projects where we lean towards. All right. I think I turn it to Emily now.
Thanks, Amy. Hi, everybody. So the foundation actually has a lot of free resources available on our website that can help you with writing your LOI and your application. And so I'm going to talk about a few of those. We've hosted webinars. The recordings are on both our website and our YouTube. We have some that are specifically about how to write an LOI and an application for the PhRMA Foundation. We have one that's about crafting clear, compelling research aims and writing that specific aims page for when you do your full application if you're invited. We also have blogs and infographics on our website that you can take a look at that have tips, what to do, what not to do, where we've interviewed experts and they give us their advice. Again, I highly recommend you go and review some of these webinars and these resources before you begin working on your LOI. So I'm just going to highlight some of the application advice that you will find in some of these resources. The number one thing that a lot of our committee people always say is please follow the directions. If you don't include all the items that we ask for in your application or your LOI, you will be triaged and your application or LOI may not even be read at all. Make sure you're eligible, make sure you're following the instructions. Another really, really important point is you need to be writing your own proposal. As a trainee, especially, our committees pay close attention to what they call the applicant's voice. And if they notice the drastic changes in writing style and voice between, let's say, your personal statement or your bio sketch versus your research plan, your abstract, your LOI, they will notice that and it'll make them question whether you wrote your actual proposal. So it's really important that you're writing your own work and not pulling things from, your mentor's, R01 application or things like that. Another really important point, ensuring your project fits the call. I know we keep stressing this, but it is very important that you make sure you're applying to the right category and not trying to fit your research into a place where it doesn't fit into our description. So please go and read those descriptions really thoroughly on our website and make sure that you are applying to the right program and that your work actually fits into the category. Make it easy to read. So our reviewers are volunteers. They are busy scientists and experts, and the easier you make it on them, the happier they're going to be. So when you're writing proposals for your LOI or your grant, make it as easy as possible for them to read what you've written. And think about that when you're writing, and try not to, make everything squished onto a page. Use headers, use white space. Make it easier for them. Also, always proofread. They will notice, obvious errors, and that could definitely affect how they view your LOI. As Amy mentioned previously, set realistic goals and timelines for the work that you're proposing. So if you are only asking for 12 months of funding, make sure that the work you're proposing can be done in that 12 months time and that is actually realistic. Versus if you're asking for 2 years of funding, that make sure your project can be done in 2 years, not 3 years, etc. And then propose novel and creative ideas. So we really want to fund cutting edge work that is interesting, high risk, high reward, as Amy said. And our reviewers constantly mention this is something that's really important to them, that they're looking at interesting things that make them say, huh, that's really fascinating. I want to know more. If your LOI makes them want to know more, then you're more likely to be invited to submit a full application. And then going along with that, telling reviewers why your research matters, making sure that they understand the potential impact, that translational angle that we're talking about, why everything has to be therapeutically relevant. And then, as we keep harping on, show that you're a future leader. So as they were saying in your bio sketch, making sure you're putting everything in there that proves to us that you are a leader, that you're somebody that we want to invest in. And then for your full application, making sure you're getting really excellent references and that you're preparing your references appropriately to submit those letters, and make sure they know what they need and what the deadline is and that it's in advance, because you will not be able to submit your application if your letters of reference are not already submitted by your references. We also do other webinars that don't have to do with grant writing, that have to do with things like exploring industry career opportunities and honing some of your other professional skills other than grant writing. So these are a couple of examples of recent webinars we've done in the past few years. We did one on transitioning from academia to industry, where we had a panel of researchers who had made that transition, and they talked about their experiences and why they did it and things they had wished they had known, etc. So if you are interested in an industry career, I suggest you go check out that webinar recording. And then we've also done some on, for example, mastering the art of networking, and that really heavily focuses on how to use your connections, how to do informational interviewing for potential jobs you're interested in, things like that. And then we also have done webinars with specific companies, specific pharmaceutical companies, that talk about the types of PhD, postdoc, PharmD type fellowships that are available at particular companies. And so keep an eye out for these type of events from us going forward. I strongly recommend that you sign up for our newsletter list so that you'll be alerted whenever we have funding opportunities or events like these webinars, so that you can sign up to come to those. We actually have another funding opportunity separate from our regular traditional awards that is opening up, called a Trainee Challenge Award. And you may have seen, if you're on our list already, some advertisements for some of these in the past. So our Challenge Awards are competitions that we host with scientific journals. This one we are doing with the journal Pharmaceutical Research. And we are looking for manuscripts on advancing genetic medicine. And so these manuscripts will be submitted to a special call, which is currently going to be opening this week. And we will then go through peer review like normal. And then our scientific advisory committee will review the papers, and they'll pick up to 5 papers, trainee first author papers, to give $5,000 awards for their outstanding manuscripts. And so I highly recommend you check out this opportunity. We'll be sending out an email about it later this week, but keep that in mind for those of you who maybe have research in this area that you're looking to publish. And then finally, these are our supporters, and we couldn't do any of this work without their generous donations. And then I just want to thank you. Here's the contact information for our team. Again, I highly recommend you visit our website, subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And then at this point, we're going to open the floor for and start answering the questions that we're getting in the Q&A. So Amy, do you want to kick it off? You might have some that you've seen that you want to tackle.
Yes. If you're not reading the Q&A, I encourage you to read it, because I answered quite a few. MD, PhD trainees are absolutely eligible for the predoctoral award, and a lot of the people on those committees are MD, PhDs. A first author paper as a conference paper may not be competitive for faculty or postdoc, maybe for a pre-doc application. Uh, does the dual funding mechanism restriction apply for applications to be awarded on Monday? I don't understand the question, Joanne, do you? No, okay. PhD project is focused on bioengineering of an enzyme. It sounds like delivery to me, and it does sound like it would be in scope. Hollow fiber indication, PD modeling. I think you could apply for translational medicine, high hollow fiber infection model, but check out delivery also. Um, and remember the delivery timeline is different from the translational. So read closely and then decide. Maybe even speak to your mentor. Uh, um, I don't know if we would fund a postdoc working as a research scholar. I think we'd need to understand the institution and if it looks like a traditional postdoc. And if your grant proposal is different from your thesis project, that's absolutely okay. Okay, there's more questions, sorry. Proposals are more strong if they have preliminary results for sure. And which year you are in a PhD or if you have a master's or not, it doesn't matter. What matters is that your mentor can attest that you are ready to move on to the dissertation research phase of your doctoral program. That's what is important. Light activated cancer immunotherapeutics. Yeah, Mana, I'm not sure what category that fits in either. I would suggest you read the definitions closely and then maybe speak to some people in your committee or colleagues. So let's say you're in a drug delivery lab and a pre-doc, a postdoc, and the faculty all want to apply for our grants. You cannot do that all in drug delivery. I strongly urge you to not try to force a drug delivery project into translational medicine or into delivery. Same if you're delivery. Don't try to pigeonhole that into translational. We understand that this restriction is going to tempt you to do that. And I know this sounds unfair, but we receive far more applications than we can fund, and we had to restrict in some ways. So please take it to the lab, talk amongst yourselves, but don't try to put a square peg in a round hole because we will probably discern it. And if we don't, the reviewers will. For postdoc publications, conference abstracts count, but I want to be clear. You're competing against people who have first author, probably two first author publications if you're a postdoc. And so if you don't have two first author actual research study publications, you are probably not going to be competitive. And you may not even make it through the LOI process. And so I think you need to be honest with yourself about the publication requirements to be competitive in your space. And if you want to see, what I mean, go look at our last annual report and go look up the award winners in your category in the postdoctoral areas and look at their publication records. They are going to be impressive. I think I've covered everything. I'm starting to see ones that are a little redundant. So protocol papers do count, and your publication record does not have to relate to your study. In fact, I really want to stress that if you've worked in a lab as an undergraduate and published there, and you've worked on a master's project in a lab and published there, and then you did separate work as a pre-doc and published there, and now you are in your first year of a postdoc and you've published there, you're highly competitive because you've learned a lot and you've worked with different types of mentors on different types of projects and you've collected skills along the way. Highly competitive. Don't hide your research. We don't see people who've published in a variety of fields and say, huh, they don't know where they're going scientifically. That is not our interpretation. Our interpretation is, wow, they're collecting skills along the way. They're a dynamic thinker, open to experiences, have been successful in a variety of circumstances, knows a lot of science. So it's a good thing. And I see quite a few questions related to that. No, we want to see your intellectual diversity. If you've published in a, completely unrelated field, that's fantastic. And co-first authorships are absolutely acceptable. It's really hard for me to judge your scientific ideas in this sort of hot topic round. What I'd encourage you all to do is read what we've funded in the past in our annual report, read our current project definitions, and then find someone you trust who can help guide you because I think they will be able to help you identify where your science best fits. So, if your LOI was rejected last year, I would look back at our requirements, look back at how we've defined our programs, and then think about what could be missing, and maybe bring your LOI to a trusted colleague and say, "Why do you think this fell through the cracks? How could I improve it?" I wouldn't just send in the same document, um, but it doesn't count against you at all. You can, if you don't have a publication, you're not going to be competitive. And so I just don't think you should apply.
Amy, I see another one that says, can I submit two LOI proposals, one to drug delivery and translational medicine? No, don't do that. Don't submit to more than one program.
So there was something about competitive. When we get to the full application, we pay at roughly the 6% pay line. They are very competitive. Um, so if you are awarded a different fellowship, would you need to forego funding? That's a question you ask after you win both. And if you win a PhRMA Foundation fellowship and for whatever reason you do have to forego the funding, you can still label yourself as a PhRMA Foundation fellowship awardee. And we've had that happen. We've had people take NIH dollars over ours, but they still accept the award as something to put into their CV.
I see another question that asks if there's a specific format for the LOI. We do not have a template or specific format that we require.
Most do look like this NIH style, but we've had different kinds. When will we get feedback from the invited LOIs for the, so we don't provide feedback at the LOI phase. We only provide feedback for those full applications. And if you've applied before, you've already gotten that feedback. So it's true that our foundation fellowships don't always cover a complete stipend, and your university is able to fill in the blanks to get you up to whatever your stipend support should be. But it can't be duplicative. It can't be two stipend support full grants.
I do want to mention that from an LOI perspective this year, you'll be entering your LOI in Proposal Central in a application portal. It will not be an attachment. Only your figures will be an attachment. So you want to have your LOI already written, typed out in a Word document, and then you will be cutting and pasting it, and you will have a 4,500 character limit, including spaces.
And that's a change from past years, right, Joanne? Used to be an attachment, but this year we're submitting it into the system.
Exactly.
So somebody asked about past industrial experience. It's very common to have an industrial postdoc, but if you have industrial experience and that was the start of your career, So there are quite a few industrial positions where you continue to do research, just like you're a researcher in an academic institution. We will consider you already have started your career. So it wouldn't be an early faculty grant. Those are meant for early career people. And that's a very good question. That said, we do kind of like to see industrial experience. So you have to ask yourself, was I in a postdoctoral type situation or under a mentor in my industrial position, or was I an independent researcher? And and not only is that your opinion of yourself, but would that be the objective perspective of an outsider looking at your career trajectory? That's a really good question. So I'm reading Jean-Pierre, and I would just encourage you to read the project definitions, the program definitions closely. Look at what we funded in the past, and again, it really does sound like delivery to me, but you might want to check with somebody else who knows your research.
I see somebody's asking about references. The references aren't until the application stage, so you won't need to worry about that unless you're invited to do a full application. We don't do references at the LOI stage, just to make that clear. And then there are a certain number of references that you would have to do in specific types of references once you get there.
The number of reference letters, there's usually 3 to 5. It also depends on external collaborators. So you can just have one from your mentor, one from, you can have like one or two, but you may need more if you need expertise. Or if you're working in a lab that's not the lab of your mentor, we need a letter saying, yes, they're going to physically be here. They're going to use our genomics tools or whatever. And that is common.
I've also seen a couple of pre-doc potential applicants asking about, if they have a manuscript that's submitted but not yet published. The problem with that is we have no way of knowing whether you actually have a manuscript submitted or how close it is to publication. And so that doesn't meet the requirement of having a publication. However, I would say if your publication has been submitted to a journal, but it's already published on like bioRxiv, where we can actually see it as a publication, I think that's probably acceptable. Amy, do you agree?
Yeah. So somebody asked about cell-derived organoids. We've seen them both in drug delivery and translational medicine. So that's again an example of where you should probably speak with somebody else about where it would fit better. So drug repurposing, committees love. And would it be better to focus on one disease or more than one? Probably more than one. And we want to see that. That looks good. If you change institutions after applying, are you still eligible to accept the award? The award is based on your institution, your environment. That's one of the features we judge, and so they are not transferable.
I see an AI question in there. Amy, you want to tackle that?
Can you read it out loud?
Yeah, it says, what are your policies about using AI to write/edit?
Um, you can use it to edit your work, and I encourage you to use it to edit your work. I don't think you should use it for generative AI. You know not to use it for citations because it'll make them up. Um, you don't know what the different committee members think about AI. And so if committee members have AI detection tools within their institutions, or if something about your project looks like it was too written by AI, then it won't go far. So you have to be careful with how you use it. So translational medicine, computational tool development, anonymous, I would need way more information. Just look at the scope of the types of projects we've seen in translational medicine and see if it would fit.
Some
Antibody targeting is probably delivery, but it could be translational, so read both project descriptions carefully.
Somebody is asking about one of your things, Amy, about the aims, whether they should be completely independent. You want to tackle that?
Yeah, they can be completely independent or they could be interdependent. The danger with interdependence is if an aim fails. So let's say you have three aims and you're asking for 24 months of funding, and aim one fails, and there's no really good alternative plan for aim two and aim three, then you're not going to win the award because we will have given you funds for 24 months and you failed in month three. That's not making us happy. So when you do put those alternative plans in, they have to be good alternative plans. They have to be strong. They have to show real good thinking. And I mean, that's the strength of interdependent of a lack of interdependency. But they really, the review committees look very strongly at that, especially at committee level. If it's discussed, they will talk quite a bit about the risk of failure and interdependency, and it is something that makes us score lower, like not as well scoring as another.
I have a question for you. Emily, you might have the answer to this. Should the poster presentation be published?
I mean, it's always helpful if we can confirm it, but we don't have that as a requirement. I would say just make sure it's listed in your bio sketch, and it's just always preferable if we can confirm you actually did give a presentation somewhere.
So we are almost at time. We have captured the chat, and if we don't think we covered a big topic, we will respond via blog. If you have questions about where your project fits, I think you should read our program descriptions closely and then speak with someone at your institution to help you determine. I think you are the best expert in your research, and others who know your research are better experts and better able to judge than we are. And if it doesn't fit, please don't apply. Use your efforts elsewhere. For those of you who do submit, we wish you the best of luck. We look forward to looking at your ideas. We get very excited on review days, love debating your science, and we're grateful for you for pursuing science. So good luck to all of you, and thank you for coming to the webinar today.